Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Mauricio Vera. I'm the Assistant National Director of the Veteran Institute for Procurement, and I want to welcome everyone to the final session of VIP's Continuing Education Workshop for 2025. As you know, these sessions are designed specifically for veteran business owners to allow each of you to take a deeper dive into some of the key market topics relevant to the procurement landscape currently. Our goal is to empower you and your business to take full advantage of AI's transformative power. This workshop series is brought to you by the Veteran Institute for Procurement in partnership with the SBA and the Veteran Business Outreach Centers as an extended training benefit for VIP graduates, current applicants, or any veteran small business owner looking for insights to help them maximize their business potential. As many of you know, VIP offers 6 training curriculums in total, all offered at no cost to veteran entrepreneurs. Specifically note our VIP International and Advanced courses, which are taking place this March and April, are open and only take place once a year. There are still a few select spots available for these 2 sessions, so please apply. Our applications are reviewed and accepted on a first-come, first-served basis, so your chance to apply now at our website and avoid waiting another year to attend. Space is limited, so make sure you act quickly. And for more information or to apply, just visit our website at nationalvip.org. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers for today. First, let me introduce Ms. Elizabeth Chirico, who serves as the Principal Director of the Chief Artificial Intelligence Office's Mission and Analytics Directorate. This directorate helps teams across the Department of Defense access and translate data from across the department into products and applications to make faster, better informed decisions. Elizabeth also has 14 years of Army contracting experience and has served in a number of roles as a senior procurement analyst and contracting professional. Elizabeth is also joined by her colleague, Mr. Ryan Connell. Ryan is the Chief of Acquisition Experiments in the Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office. In this role, he is charged with heading CDAO's contracting, building novel contracting pathways, AI tools for acquisition, and AI acquisition education. Ryan has 15 years of defense acquisition experience, including cost estimating, pricing, negotiation, cost analysis, and compliance. So obviously you're in good hands with Elizabeth and Ryan. Just a couple of notes before I hand it off to them. We encourage you to engage throughout the presentations. As with the other sessions, please ask your questions anytime using the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar. Please don't use the chat box for questions. The chat box is really for comments among yourselves. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We'll do our best to address your questions as we go along, but we will allow some time at the end for Q&A. So we look forward to your questions. And lastly, the slides and a video recording from today's session will be provided to you at the end of the series. So that should be available within the next few days. And now, again, it is my great pleasure to turn it over to Elizabeth and Ryan. Welcome to VIP. It's all yours.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for the wonderful, warm welcome and introduction. Would you mind moving to the next slide? Okay, there we are. Again, my name is Liz Chirico. I'm the Principal Director of Mission Analytics for the Directorate of Scaled Capabilities. So as some of you may have heard recently, the CDAO has slightly reorganized some of our directorates in order to kind of drive towards scale. So we'll talk more about enable, speed, and scale, which are kind of the 3 boxes that our directorates are organized in to really help us deliver for the mission. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So CDAO, history and origins of CDAO. The Chief Digital Artificial Intelligence Office's mission is to accelerate adoption of digital and AI solutions across the DoD. So CDIO is a fairly new organization within DoD. And it began by combining kind of pockets of excellence from across the department that were all driving toward data and analytics, driving data and analytics and digital maturity across DoD. And while each of these teams had promising work, when combined, they were truly greater than the sum of their parts. And CDAO, it might help to think about kind of having two different aspects that it drives toward. So it's advancing deterrence by ensuring our warfighters have the very best digital capabilities, and beating bureaucracy by ensuring our critical business functions like financial management, logistics, healthcare have the right digital solutions to deliver for the warfighters and the taxpayers at the same time. This slide just sort of talks through some of the key other areas that kind of combined all within CDAO. So Advana, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. Some of you may have heard of the JAIC, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Office, the CDO, Chief Data Office, and then DDS, Defense Digital Services. So all of those sort of legacy organizations and a lot of those functions now live under CDAO. They may be reorganized a bit. There may be different teams and different alignments, but the genesis of the vision and mission of those organizations lives on in CDAO. Okay, next slide, please. Great. All right, so CDAO, a PSA that executes. So what is a PSA? A PSA is a principal staff assistant. So if you think about the Office of the Secretary of Defense, it's kind of at the very, very top of the org chart in DoD. It's supporting it's a direct alignment to the Deputy Secretary of Defense. The deputy has a number of PSAs, principal staff assistants, and CDAO is one of the newest principal staff assistants. It has a very unique role because traditionally principal staff assistants are mostly focused on driving policy and oversight, governance. However, CDAO is dual-hatted to also have a service delivery component, which is very cool. So that involves, as a digital and AI delivery organization, it involves building software, cloud, AI, enabling services for customers across the Pentagon, the services, combatant commands, and the fourth estate. So that's pretty exciting, and it's very unique. So CDAO has teams that do everything from policy and governance to delivering and sustaining data and AI infrastructure, working with key customers across the department to ensure they have the right digital solutions. And we're going to talk through a lot of those solutions and areas. Specifically, the directorate and team that I represent of scaled capabilities talks a lot and works with enterprise services. So our main charter, which we'll talk about later too, is really making sure that we're scaling up the number of users, delivering across the department, partnering with key functional areas, and driving adoption and maturity of data and AI services. So it's pretty exciting. It's a unique position, I would say. All right, next slide. Okay, great. So enable, speed, and scale. Functionally, CDAO is organized into these sort of three buckets. So from the outside, the structure could feel a little maybe opaque or like confusing. And so, Dr. Plum, our CDAO, organized us into these kind of three areas. So enable, the enable box, so to speak, encompasses the writing of policies and processes that promulgate and oversee these practices across DoD. So that includes setting formal standards, delivering best practices, building templates and tools, and also defining acquisition pathways and processes to put capabilities in the hands of DoD users. So there's a few directorates that kind of nest in the enable box of the organization. The next one is speed. And speed relates to areas where we put direct investment and staff expertise to develop and deliver solutions on an accelerated timeline, really proving out the art of possible. So things like pilots, proofs of concepts, advanced command and control space, the guide exercises, things like that are in the speed box. Most recently, we created a new organization within CDAO called the ARC, AIRCC, but it's like an AI-driven cell that's focused on pilots and experimentation, test and evaluation. And so that's very exciting, and that also lives like within the speed box, so to speak. The last one is scale. And so the directorate that I represent is within the scale box, and scale is focused on the delivery of large central enterprise platforms that include data stacks, development environments, and test and evaluation tools to build capabilities. So data, analytic, and AI-enabled products that spread insights across the enterprise, and assurance processes to build an interoperable ecosystem of platforms and products that are technically sound, secure, and work together to deliver real value. And so my boss, the DCDAO for scaled capabilities, Garrett Birdson, now, drives two kind of sides of our organization, mission analytics and enterprise platforms and services. And so together, we're really driving delivery, scale, and adoption across the department. Okay.
Liz, I think you hit
slide.
it. I think you hit it, but just like for clarity, right? You're in this, just so the audience kind of orients, right? You're in the scale bucket. I'm in the enable bucket, being an acquisition person. So just wanted to highlight that for the list.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Yep. And obviously, these things are not like, I wouldn't say they're set in stone. Like we all partner together. Like Ryan's working on a lot of pilots and proofs of concepts, even though his organization resides in the enable bucket. We're going to talk a little bit later about how things move from speed to scale. Like when a pilot gets proven out, what happens to it, and all of these things work hand in hand together. So that's the strength of the organization. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, next slide. Okay, just a little background on Advana. So Advana is the department's enterprise and data analytics environment, and it stands for Advancing Analytics. It's the DoD's largest enterprise data system. And it was originally established as a single enterprise data analytics platform for the department's leadership, thinking about looking at dashboards, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, DMAGs, very high level senior governance boards and meetings. And it started initially with a key partnership with OUSD Comptroller, which is another PSA, but it really grew from there over time into a lot of other functional areas that you can see depicted here. So policy, executive decision support, logistics, intelligence and security, financial management, people and health, a myriad, really. And so since then, Advana has grown to become, DoD's largest data system. It reaches over 100,000 users and connects over 500 source systems, proving out the promise of data-driven digital solutions. So the Advana journey and growth really has been remarkable. I mean, this has been over like the last 5 or 6 years. It's a testament to the department's rapid digital transformation. And I would say with its rapid growth and successes also came, some lessons learned. Like Advana kind of started as a pilot that it grew like wildfire. It grew really quickly. And we're in a place now where we're trying to kind of shore up the foundation a bit to really make sure it's ready to deliver at scale, which is really exciting. So everything from the technical architecture to its acquisition approach, designing it to meet the needs of the future of the department. Let's see. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. So I think I kind of talked a little bit about this. I'm going to cover this later, but the concept of Open Dagger. So Open Dagger is open data and applications, government-owned interoperable repositories. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but the precepts of it are driving interoperability, increasing vendor competition, infusing best-of-breed industry solutions into the Advana ecosystem. And beyond Advana, it's really designed, for any platform within the department. It's really honing into interoperability, having the ability, both from a technical standpoint and an acquisition standpoint, to allow vendors and new technology solutions to kind of interoperate within the department's tools and platforms quickly and easily to deliver value. So the drive toward the interoperable open Dagger sort of concept foundation is to meet a broader and more varied population of users and needs, and to increase our ability to scale and deliver value. Okay, next slide. Great. Yeah, and I mentioned some of these stats earlier just to give you an idea of how large Advana is and the myriad of functional areas that it is serving. Okay, great. Next slide, please. Okay, the Open Dagger ecosystem. So I've been in my current position as Principal Director of Mission Analytics for a little over 9 months. And in talking to, my boss, many other leaders across the department, staff officers, other partners, our teams, we hear a common refrain, which is generally everything moves too slow. And it's true. It's one of our key challenges in the department, our inability to move rapidly to deliver modern digital capabilities at scale. There's an enormous amount of innovation happening across the department, inside service PEOs, at the combatant commands, and in various defense agencies and field activities. And to be clear, this does not minimize their successes at delivering results. But if we really want to transform the world's largest organization and history's greatest fighting force, we need the ability to go quickly from pilots, prototypes, and experiments to funded, widely accessible platforms, tools, and services. And so there's a number of challenges to achieving scale. They are numerous and well documented. And so here's just a few, just naming a few. We make it hard to scale from an acquisition standpoint. We make it hard for new capabilities to access government production environments and data. We make it hard to meet changing cyber and security policies. We make it hard for commercial software to compete with incumbent custom-built solutions. And we make it hard to understand who's responsible and empowered on the government side. So the good news is we've been chipping away at these problems. We work with great partners, and we've got a lot of really motivated, smart folks that are on board that are trying to drive change across the board. And that brings us to Open Dagger. So I mentioned it before, it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a framework by which we started setting ideal principles, designing processes, and bringing concepts to life that will help us bring more capabilities to scale more quickly. Fortunately, because of CDAO's unique role in OSD, we are uniquely positioned to tackle a cross-cutting set of challenges from acquisition policy, authorization, and technical delivery. Next slide, please. So we have all these functions native to our organization, and Congress has empowered us with a nexus of authorities to help drive digital modernization. So since Open Dagger was announced this summer, we've been quickly pushing reforms on each of these areas to include key acquisition initiatives like expansions to trade winds, which Brian's going to discuss later today. We have an upcoming Advancing AI Multiple Award Contract, IDIQ, which is called the AAMAC. It's a more competitive approach to both driving software and services support across the CDAO and all of DoD. So it will be a decentralized contract vehicle, which is great news. We've also made upgrades to our technical infrastructure on platforms like Advana, and building connectivity between authoritative data on Advana to other DoD platforms like NGA's Maven Smart Systems, and improvements to our internal business models and functions. We've published new DoD-wide data policies as well. But again, this is just the start to more effectively move the department forward in its adoption of AI. We at CDIO and the DoD must align these principles with clear actions, processes, and deliveries of scaled capabilities. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So speed to scale, what does this mean? One solution to these challenges is a speed to scale workflow, which connects government, digital, and AI requirements to tailored acquisition approaches and includes on-ramps and off-ramps for the sponsorship and resourcing of enterprise solutions. So starting at the top, we have a central place to collect, define, and prioritize its enterprise digital requirements. And so because of CDIO's track record for pathfinding with new and innovative solutions, the demand signals for digital capabilities come rapidly and frequently to our front door, which is great news. The next is rapid prototyping. So this takes shape in many ways. We have amazing teams inside of CDIO that support experimentation efforts like CJAD-C2, our software SWAT teams in the Defense Digital Services, also known as DDS. We also partner and work with DIU, Defense Innovation Unit, to bring innovative new commercial technologies quickly into a broader defense ecosystem. And of course, there are teams across the department building and testing new digital capabilities closest to the mission every day. And so the issue is really not the lack of innovation, it's a lack of transitioning innovation to department-wide scale. So particularly the pilots and prototypes that have success and they demonstrate success in certain areas, how do we take those things and really maximize them across the department? So regardless of wherever experimentation is taking place, we really need to establish and communicate how promising projects can travel various pathways and mature into enterprise solutions. So we have marketplaces like CDIO's Trade Wins, where since September, we have 395 digital and AI solutions that were readily awardable across the DoD and 32 DoD organizations making awards. Ryan might correct me, that might have increased since then, but
it's gone up. It's gone up.
It's gone up. It's going up every day. So that's great. And then internal to CDIO, our digital and AI-focused small business innovation research initiatives will provide opportunities to small businesses for research and development. So it's our priority to continue iterating, evolving, and making these pathways accessible to allow for the transition of pilots to scaled capabilities. From there, we need a methodology and criteria for evaluating these new capabilities and a process to determine a transition decision. And so as you can see here, there are various potential outcomes, only one of which is to transition into a, quote, CDIO scaled capability. Some experiments may not move on to past the pilot phase. Others may be better suited for management by the services or field activities, and others will remain with CDIO to be provided as a capability to any other DoD customer that's interested. Okay, next slide. All right, speed to scale, innovation pipeline. So pictured slightly differently, this pipeline should operate as a funnel. It should have a very wide opening at the top to allow for a diverse community and ecosystem of digital and AI pilots and experiments to come through a single front door for CDIO assessment. And so I want to spend just a minute on a criticism that maybe we often hear, like the department is too risk averse. So I think this is a fair critique, and it is one we want to overcome with the speed to scale approach. But implicit in taking a less risk averse approach is the reality that not every pilot deserves to be at scale. Not every R&D dollar is going to turn into a product. There are going to be times where we have to take a look at the lessons learned evolve and go back to the drawing board. And that's why we have pilots. And so a desire for the department to take more risk, paradoxically, means more vendors will deliver pilots that may not be scaled. But this is a feature and not a bug. We need to be comfortable with that, and so should our industry partners on the journey with us. And there are a handful of new capabilities we're working down this funnel. We're actively utilizing interoperable software stacks from vendors like Palantir or Foundry, a myriad of others as well, or the recently announced production agreement to scale on Tactical Edge data mesh from Anduril. There's also a DIU created agile talent marketplace for reservists called Gig Eagle. There's another project called Lilt that's bringing large language models to support linguists' requirements. These are just a few, examples. There are many more. Our goal is to use this approach for upgrading or expanding CDAO's current enterprise software tools and services to new versions, diversifying vendor options while scaling what we have. So we're working very closely with partners inside our existing ecosystem to strengthen our relationship, upgrade their solutions, and scale to new users with partners like Databricks, C3AI, Click, Salesforce, again, a myriad of others. Those are just a few examples. Okay, next slide. Implementing scaled capabilities. So you might be thinking, what does the result of a speed to scale transition look like if it's successful? So day to day, you would experience more streamlined, polished business processes for how to connect CDAO support, more widely accessible technical offerings like federated applications and new government-owned development environments, evolving acquisition and budget tools and resources for utilizing scaled capabilities. Ultimately, our goals are these. These are set by my boss, Garrett Burnson. So we're driving toward these. 1 million users across the OpenDagger ecosystem by 2027. A drastically increased catalog of digital software solutions to drive competition and expand access to the best software. Third, a 90% reduction in time to add or upgrade software solutions to scaled CDAO platforms. And fourth, all CDAO managed scaled capabilities connected to the department's federated data catalog. So we acknowledge these are bold goals, but they are necessary ones to meet the geopolitical moment, adapt to rapidly changing technologies, and deliver for our warfighters. CDAO is a vital engine as we continue accelerating change with urgency from the E-ring of the Pentagon to the tactical edge, delivering at speed and scale. Speed and scale are not mutually exclusive, and the sense of urgency is our driver as we continue to drive digital transformation across the department. So with that, I'm going to pause. That's the end of my content. I don't know if we want to pause and maybe have some questions or discussions before I hand it over to Ryan.
Yeah, Liz, I think so there's a couple questions in the Q&A that may actually just be a segue to acquisition stuff anyway. I can attempt to answer them, but if you have any input, please do. So the first one is about CDO requiring suppliers to be CMMC compliant. So I believe that that's kind of a convoluted question. So it's going to be contract specific, right? So if you have a FAR-based contract, there's going to be DFARs that then reference the NIST requirements for CMMC, I think. It really just depends on your contract vehicle, right? So today, CDAO's acquisition authority, CDAO, like if we have an internal CDAO contract award, it's actually another transaction, an OT. We don't have any PCOs that can award FAR-based contracts, but we do have CDAO requirements that we outsource to other contracting offices that award contracts and can award FAR vehicles. So at the end of the day, it's just going to depend on what's in your contract. If it's a FAR-based contract, it's going to reference DFARs. You're going to have to be CMMC compliant. If it's another transaction, it may. right? It's just going to be up to the requirement owner on what language they want to put in the other transaction. So I hope that helps that question. The second one is, does your organization work with agencies such as CBOA, DITRA, Air Force 59 Medical, Aberdeen, DARPA? My team is working with those agencies with technology that deals with all things AI. I'd like to share with Liz and Ryan. Sure. Yeah. I mean, we definitely partner with a bunch of DoD agencies. I know I've been working with DARPA and some others more recently. I have a vendor engagement link that I'll send you that we offer to everyone who wants to just connect with us. So I'll drop that in the chat here. There's a slide on it as well. How can current solutions sign up for these pilot capabilities? When Liz mentioned the ARC, the AI Rapid Capability Cell, I dropped a link in the chat. It was the formal press release about the ARC. Within that document, it kind of outlines some plans for like what types of pilots we're going to be looking for. I believe the way it was outlined is about $100 million worth of activity. 40 million of that is done through our original SIBR call, Small Business Innovative Research, that Liz hit on. That's closed at this point. I think that's $40 million. I think there's a $35 million line item for kind of frontier AI pilots. So that will be forthcoming as an opportunity. Like all opportunities are either going to be listed on our tradewinai.com website or sam.gov. So those are the two, or ai.mil. So just kind of keep an eye out to your normal type of BD activities for those types of opportunities. I hope that helps. And next question is, CDO support contract writing systems deployed services contracting officer. Is there a desire for a standard DoD system? CDAO support contract writing system deployed services contracting officer. I'm not sure I understand what that's saying. We use PD2 as our contract writing system. We're migrating to eShwin, which is the fourth estate wide contract writing system. My understanding was everyone in fourth estate being everyone in DoD that isn't directly Army, Air Force, Navy, had to make that transition. We'll be there by FY26.
Yeah, Ryan, one thing on that. I know that there maybe is still a desire to have one single DoD contract writing system. I know the services have been partnering on that to some extent and are all in different stages with it. But I think that is something that as a department, we are trying to drive toward. I think it's taking a while. It's very complex. There's a lot, as you all know, a lot of complexities in acquisition. But I do think that's something the department is striving toward.
Yeah, I mean, even just to give some detail on that, right? Like we DoD, fourth estate stood up a fourth estate contract writing system, and I was asked to attend training and send the team, and it doesn't have the ability to do other transactions, which is, I just mentioned, the only thing that we do here. And so just, constantly walking through all of those nuances, it's intended to be deployed when we need it, but we're just not there yet. And then I think it's the last question here. Liz, maybe I'll punt to you and then I'll go to, but what would you consider your largest challenge where you have an appetite for help?
Oh, wow. I mean, we need help in all kinds of different places. Largest challenge. I mean, I think, like I had mentioned before, the Open Dagger kind of technical foundation and framework is really going to open the door to kind of bring in initial kind of pilots, prove out capabilities, and then give us the opportunity to scale. And so I think where we're going to lean on industry is we need innovative solutions to help us. We need to make data and AI services more broadly available, and we need to kind of match up where we have requirements with the ability to deliver quickly and efficiently. So I would encourage everyone to, reach out to us. Ryan's going to cover more of this in his brief as well, but there's a lot of opportunities to engage with DoD in this capacity, and show us, the art of possible.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll share. I think from my perspective, it's been a really unique opportunity. Liz, you kind of hit off at the beginning, kind of seeing how like those 4 organizations have come together to be CDO. I've been here since April. Liz has been here before I got here. I've seen, even just personally, feel like there's been a pretty significant transformational change during my 8 months, whatever it's been, in terms of like us kind of finally breaking down some of those barriers, working together as one organization. Standing up an acquisition team, because frankly, before last year, it was all outside resource contracting. So working through like the acquisition authority and like who said you have acquisition authority and like all of those things. That's been the things that I've been trying to navigate. Questions keep piling in. I'll just keep hitting them. Weekly or community practice. Liz, I don't know if you have anything. We have a really small pilot right now. It's called Uncynic Society. It is for the non-cynics of the world. It is open to the public. I can drop a link. We did like a soft launch right before Christmas. Haven't really figured out what a normal rhythm, if you will, is. The intent is just to bring together like-minded people, either in the acquisition space or the AI space, kind of open to both. So like I said, really small pilot just to see if it's something that the world needs. I have been a part of a lot of community practices that haven't worked out. So we're just kind of dipping our feet in and seeing what works. Liz, do you have anything like that? I don't.
No, I think you guys are kind of a primary arm of engaging actively with industry. We are more focused on what I would say is I would closely align with like the services and functional areas across the department. And then we work with them to understand like what their mission demands are and help them build out solutions or think through, what we have available today and what we can do to kind of get after those solutions the best way possible. Yeah.
Awesome. Someone asked where the opportunities were. I'll drop a couple links in the chat. So you can have those. It's an open Dagger question, Liz, but it says, what's Dagger or the PSA's goal in developing a digital twin, if any, and what can small disabled veteran-owned small businesses, service disabled veteran-owned small business do to support?
Yeah, I think there are some efforts working on digital twins. I don't have all the details on that, but we can get back to you on that.
Awesome. And this is a you question too, I think, Liz. Can you discuss expectation and opportunity on the AMAC for Advana for small business? And more specifically, will there be any service disabled small business track? Is it still expected to come out in February, March 25, or is it delayed?
Yeah, I believe it is still expected to come out in the February or March timeframe. So keep your eye out for that. And we are working with the Air Force team on what the various vendor pools would look like. I feel pretty confident there will at least be a small business vendor pool. I don't have the specifics on whether there will be a specific service disabled veteran-owned small business pool, but there may be. I think they're working through those details right now. But it is still on track from everything that I hear. I have weekly meetings with our teams on that.
Awesome. All right, let's get into some acquisition slides. Cool. All right. I mentioned how like acquisitions is kind of like internal acquisitions here at CDO is a little bit newer, even compared to the new organization. The Advana thing that Liz just talked about, referencing the Air Force contracting offices, is an example of us going to an outside contracting office rather than our own internal acquisition support. So still growing and maturing. That's why you see some of these goals being along the lines of growing and maturing. Very real working through day to day in terms of like even just templates and like what should be what and all of that, working through a lot of that still. We did open a cyber call, like I mentioned, That was CDO's kind of first opportunity. We were able to partner with the OSD Cyber Sitter Office for it should be several rounds this year, so there should be more calls for cyber proposals in support of. This one was an open topic for Gen AI. Still kind of working through what the rest of the year looks like, but we might kind of go around the various CDO directorates and do ones that are more geared towards the types of things that those various directorates are looking for. Kind of working that. We might do an acquisition related one. So still in the planning phase, but there will and should be more cyber opportunities coming this year. Big thing for us is scaling Tradewinds. Tradewinds is effectively our umbrella that we'll just call acquisition experiments. I get the fancy title of chief of acquisition experiments. It's the fun part of trying a bunch of things and seeing what sticks. So very much day to day is an experimental mindset and culture here. And then lastly on this slide, in terms of just like reaching out to us, we do operate a vendor engagement program, sort of twofold. So we used to have 2 meetings. We've condensed it down to 1 with each vendor. Effectively, we can kind of help orient, if you will, like, hey, the things that I just dropped in the chat. Hey, go to tradewinai.com here. If you go to opportunities, you might see some things posted there. If you go to sam.gov, if you go to ai.mil, kind of like help, just call it an orientation, like a 5-minute, just like here's what's what in terms of how to navigate some of these websites. And then we offer effectively like a vendor pitch. It's an opportunity for you all to talk about your solution, how it works, do a demo, whatever that looks like. They're all done virtually because we're pretty spread out here in the acquisition team in terms of being remote and spread across the country. It'll be recorded. And we're kind of still working through the back end, but we've had some success with experiments where we're, very specific. If you guys caught some of the news over the summer, we ran a guide challenge. There are a lot of vendors that wanted to talk to us about their guide capabilities, which is the global information dominance experiment, right? And so we took a lot of those meetings, recorded them, and effectively made sure that they were flowed to the requirements owners as a funnel. Because what we were seeing is, company Acme Corp wants to go get a meeting with Liz and talk to Liz, and then wants to get a meeting with Ryan and talk to Ryan, wants to talk to Dr. Plum, and then wants to talk to this person. And so we really tried to centralize what our vendor engagement program looks like. And right now, kind of recording them, storing them, and flowing them to the appropriate directorates from a market research capability. So that's an opportunity. That's an email address. It's a very long email address. So I apologize about that. I will drop it in chat so you don't have to try to write it down because that could be a little messy. All right, go next slide. Cool. So I hit Tradewinds as the umbrella, right? But really, when I came here, my boss handed me a piece of paper and said, hey, here's the lines of effort you're in charge of. They were novel contracting pathways, AI-powered acquisition tools, and this idea of like doing AI acquisition education. Like, how do we actually buy AI? What's really neat is the first and third are about buying AI. The second one is about using AI to buy, right? So just a little twist in how we're looking at it. So a lot of this briefing is going to be talking about the Tradewinds Solution Marketplace. For those that aren't familiar with it, it's an example of a front door where you can brief your solution and actually go through a competition. And we can get into the advantages of why we do that when we get to those slides. But some of the other things that are just like ideas and what we're looking at is, we do have some enterprise-wide BOAs and BPAs. So those are decentralized ordering vehicles. So I'll give you an example. We have one called DRADE, which is about data readiness, right? There are a group of vendors that are in the DRADE candidate, pool, and then we release a statement of work or a requirement, and they're competed within that. That's how the BOAs and BPAs work. So there's a data readiness one, there's a test and evaluation one, there's also an AI talent one, which is really about bringing in people and resumes. So we have those 3 ordering vehicles in place. Sort of paused on a, especially for Drade and Teeny, kind of paused on a FY25, like open up for new vendors, kind of seeing like the demand signal first and seeing if there's a rationale to actually spend time going through the source selection and like opening up for new vendors. That was something that we had done prior years. So it's still, working through that process. I think Liz and her team are actually using some of those vehicles for some of their actions that they have in their directorate. Some of the other just, talking about experiments, right? I mean, one of the ideas that got floated that's kind of on the radar, might make a push for it towards the end of the fiscal year, was just this concept of, for those that have ever used Fiverr, the website, Fiverr, like everything's $5. And it's gigs kind of, right? And there was this idea of like, what if we, right, CDO has this mission of accelerating the adoption of AI across DoD. What if we just did like an open RFI to industry, for all of you listeners, right? And said like, for $10,000, what could you do that is in the world of AI, ML, data digital solutions, right? And we collect that as a narrative, and we need a link from you on how someone can buy that thing. And we effectively create a website that is a $10,000 government purchase card. That's the purchase card number, where DoD requirement owners can swipe for AI, right? So that like we're thinking through things like this, that may be of interest, that may be successful, maybe they're not. But again, under that experiment umbrella, we're just willing to try things. The second bucket is, again, not buying AI, but using AI to do the buying. So we do have an experiment that we funded 2 years ago now called Acquisition Robot, or ACBot. The vision was sort of an end-to-end contracting process. So not the contract writing system like was brought up earlier, but drafting my requirement, drafting my solicitation or CSO, drafting my contract working files, all of that. So that's been an interesting ride over 2 years. We're actually at a pretty good place now, at least internally within CDAO, which is not everyone. It's just limited to us right now. We have a pretty good system where we're using AI almost through the entirety of the process, from developing a requirement to developing a solicitation to generating our project agreement, which is the contract, as well as the written determination, which is sort of like our version of the story from a documentation standpoint. Of course, leveraging our AI type principles and human in the loop and all of that, and human decision, never an AI decision, right? But it's been a really interesting experiment to continue to go down. And we also launched something that we called the Acquisition Playground. There's a slide on it in this deck that I'll show you, mostly geared towards DoD users. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, knowing this audience. But these are tools and capabilities that we've found that exist, where DoD acquisition professionals can use them without needing to pay any additional money. And that comes in a whole host of reasons. Sometimes it's we funded it to exist. Sometimes it's we found something the Air Force created. Sometimes we found something that some companies stood up as a trial for a year that happens to be free, but they're going to start charging next year. So it's really just this group hug around what we think adds value to DoD, and they can use today. So just a landing page with a lot of links. And then lastly, on the education front, we have this mission of continuing, despite our very small workforce internally from a contracting standpoint, have this mission of showcasing to the rest of the department, like the things to think about, how we buy AI, kind of the traditional PSA mindset of like policy, rubrics, templates, all of that. We do that in a whole bunch of different ways. We do in-person trainings. We're developing a virtual course. We have a podcast. We have a champions for those that have used the trade and solution marketplace. We're trying to find the avid users, so we kind of make sure that they can use that mindset and pass it along to someone else, for them to adopt that same mindset. We have the Unsending Society, which is the community practice that we mentioned earlier. And then we just have a basic newsletter that we've created to share. We post it on LinkedIn pretty regularly. So that's kind of like Tradewind's umbrella of everything that belongs in it. And then the majority of what we're going to talk about here is the solutions marketplace. I think that's probably of most interest to this audience. So we can go to the next slide. All right. So I'm going to say a lot of words and be on the slide for longer than there are words on this slide. But effectively, the marketplace can be described as a post-competition environment where we have solutions, AI, ML, data, or digital solutions that have gone through a competitive process and are now in the marketplace for the rest of DoD to buy without any further competition, right? So for those that have done their BD and go and pitch, who they think will be future requirement owners or buyers, you may have been hit with well, I need to compete that, or I have to deal with doing a sole source justification, and sole source justification is not the easiest thing. A lot of local policy escalates that to GO or SCS type level, and so kind of thinking through options. About 2 years ago, we launched this experiment called the marketplace. Wasn't really sure how it was going to work, but effectively we leverage three separate authorities from a solicitation standpoint. So firstly is a BAA, a broad agency announcement, been in the FAR for years. This is the ability to broadly cast hey, I wonder how someone could help me do blank. And you generally, what we see is companies submit like 5-page white papers or something like that, proposals. And the restriction of it, the unfortunate part of that is you're limited to buying research. It's for research purposes, basic or applied or even advanced research. Right. But that's an authority that exists that allows you to be super broad in your requirement and just see what industry can come back to you with. The second one was a DIU inspired and developed, or I should say created, authority called a Commercial Solutions Opening, CSO. Right. And effectively, just like a BAA, when the early stages of DIU, they said, if only we could do this, but buy solutions. Like, we're stuck buying research. I wish I could buy products this way. Right. And they created this prototype. Now it's formally in DFARS. It is a Commercial Solutions Opening. Very, very similar requirements. Right. It's broad in nature. Generally, the way we've seen it done in DoD is collecting 5-page white papers, requires a peer or technical assessment, has to be advertised through the government-wide point of entry, which we know as SAM. Right. So kind of very, very similar. The only restriction is it has to be innovative. And that's a strange nuance. The definition of innovative that's in DFARS 212 says new at the time of the proposal, which is not this overly novel definition of innovation. So pretty broad. I bring it up from that perspective. Right. So now we have two solicitation authorities that allow us to just cast a really wide net and see what's out there. And then thirdly is for those that are navigating in outside the FAR and go into the other transaction world, you have a whole bunch of flexibility in how you're shaping another transaction. So we said, well, we could just cast a wide net with a solicitation for an OT. Right. So we have these three authorities that we kind of just stacked and said, we're going to create an announcement that could be any of those three things. Right. We're going to make sure that what we do follows the processes of any of those three. And really, when someone goes to buy it and actually awards the contract, we'll let them decide how they want to define it. Right. So we, CDAO, have an announcement on SAM.gov that basically says, Tradewin Solution Marketplace, we're looking for your 5-minute video pitch on what you sell or what you offer from a solution standpoint. Again, it has to be under the so it's CDAO, so it has to be AI, ML, data, or digital related. And every single month we collect those 5-minute videos and do a monthly source selection and say, hey, these people won and these solutions didn't win. And the ones that win don't get a contract, they just get in the marketplace. And the value proposition, again, is the ability to then have a non-competitive award following that activity. I think that probably hits this slide. We can go to the next one. I like to hit the regulations because for me, when I first came on board here, it was like, you're constantly battling, like, what is Tradewinds? It's a .com. I don't get it. It's illegal. Like, all these narratives were coming up. And I was like, all right, I'm going to dig in and read the regs and be able to explain it that way. So, I mean, I'm sure, I shouldn't say I'm sure. With this audience, I don't know how many have gone through all the battle scars and realized that doing business with DoD isn't the easiest thing. So I'll call that traditional acquisition, a lot of long lead times, potentially high barriers to entry. You could spend some time noodling around in FPDS and look at like PALT times, like the amount of time it takes from the solicitation to the contract award. You're generally, for a normal contract by negotiation, you're over a year. For something that's commercial, you're maybe half a year. Right, it's not a super fast process. So I'll highlight two stories on the Tradewin side because I think they're worth bringing up. The fastest award, and we'll use day one as the day that a requirements owner watched the video. Right, they were in the solution marketplace. They watched the video, said, "Oh my gosh, I need that." They made a contract award 8 days later. Right, so that's super fast in DoD terms. So I like to highlight that example. It's certainly not the norm. The last I saw, our average was 51 days, which is still exponentially faster than traditional contracting. But I just like to highlight the extreme and then kind of level set with the average. The other thing I'll hit is low barrier to entry. So this whole program was really designed to make it very easy for, frankly, what I believe is companies like all of yours to be able to access. So specifically made it very low barrier to entry to get into Tradewinds, and all of the normal like contract officer vetting, like are you in SAM, like are you financially responsible, are you foreign owned, like all of those types of things are on the contracting officer to do. We don't do that on the Tradewinds side. There is a interesting example. I think it was a SOCOM example where they watched the video, found a solution. Oh my gosh, I need this kind of thing. Reached out to the person that posted the video, the company, and it was, oh my gosh, I don't actually have a company yet. Like I haven't formed my LLC. So that's the extreme. They were TRL level 2, I think, right? But that's the extreme of like what can go into Tradewinds. There's a lot of TRL 9s. There's a lot of very mature companies as well. But I just like to highlight that because the point of the program really was to help emphasize the non-traditionals out there and make it easy. All right, we can go to the next slide. Cool. All right, Liz, got to update your numbers. Over 1,000 have submitted to be part of Tradewinds. 415 are in. I actually think those numbers are, I think I'm a month off. Oh, this is October. Yeah, it's very close to 500 now. I saw the numbers that just came in. So it is like 40%. Like I think people assume, they kind of read the grading rubric and how they're going to be scored and kind of assume it's going to be this cakewalk to get in. I mean, it really isn't. I mean, we don't have any sort of metric or goal on what percent should get in, but we really are looking for best of breed. We want to give the DoD requirements owners what we think is the best solutions for them to choose from. We have to maintain that level of like Tradewinds is a good thing, right? And if we start just letting everything in, Lizzie talked about not every R&D dollar is going to lead to be production, right? We do, and we review things like how do you differentiate from your competitors, what's the impact you can have on DoD, and when you watch a video and it's sort of just like a non-use case specific, like I have RAG, it's kind of like cool, like everyone does, right? So like we really are trying to help differentiate and push those solutions that appear better in their 5-minute video pitch into the marketplace. The really interesting part, though, I'll hit outside the numbers here is you get feedback, right? So I'd say we operate one of the more transparent source selections that I've ever been a part of. Whatever the feedback the assessors are typing, like I didn't like this video because blah blah blah, that goes directly to the company. So they get the direct raw feedback from the group of assessors, which is usually one industry, one academia, and one government. Like that trifecta, that's what works best for us. You can just try again, right? Like there's no penalty. I think the most I was ever tracking was one company tried 6 times. Like they didn't get in, they tried again, they didn't get in, they tried again, they got feedback, they didn't get in. We actually changed a rule in how we operate because of that specific example where, and it's a fair criticism of the program that we've updated since, but it was that, we effectively have new assessors every month that we bring in to assess the videos. And they're not necessarily made aware if the solution had previously been pitched, right? And so you could picture a situation where, month 1, the assessors are saying, oh, I wish you did this differently. The company makes that update, new group of assessors, they see the different thing and say, why'd you do that, right? And so we've now changed it so that it's apparent to the assessors if it's a resubmission. So I think that was a positive change. I hit the non-traditional thing, 87%, that's the majority, obviously. And then we track this awards completed and in progress, excuse me. I think it's just 48 now. I think it's one more. We had a big push towards the end of the fiscal year. And I think it's 38 awarded and 10 more that we're tracking. And significantly overcome the $207 million. We're at $330 million worth of awards have gone through this process. All right, we go to the next slide. Cool. I've hit a lot of this, but from the industry perspective, right? You're reading the rubric in SAM.gov, understanding the instructions on how to submit, creating your video. Please don't feel obligated to make this like big production video. It's unnecessary. I think some of the best videos are like what you're seeing now, just like someone on a screen kind of talking, kind of sharing a demo. Don't need to sink a whole lot of money into production, especially knowing we're at like a 40% acceptance on that first go around. Just, anticipate getting some feedback and trying again. So I like to highlight that. We talked about being able to try again. We talked about feedback. The team actually offers like one-on-one, I think they call it real people time. If you want, more direct feedback beyond what you got in writing, that's an opportunity as well. Or in advance, you can just reach out and kind of have some real person time to make sure you're leaning in the right direction. Next slide, please. So when you look at the authority of a CSO in DFARS, it actually kind of gives you an option of being just super broad or actually having some focus areas. We chose the latter. So when a company or a solution is being submitted, you're choosing from one of these 15 drop downs. It was 10 and it was 14, now it's 15. So we've increased this a little bit over time. When we added 4, they're all about the responsible AI and assurance and that type of environment. The most recent ad was biomedical related, kind of human over hardware type mantra, over some partnerships that we've done with some in that area. When you look for the government login, when they're actually seeing the solutions in the marketplace, it is vast majority in that top left, improving situational awareness and decision making. That is more than half of the videos that are in the marketplace. All right, next slide. Cool. Usually when I get here, I've hit everything already. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Rolling basis. So I talked about it being monthly, but it's legitimately like the first of the month to the last day of the month, right? So we're currently at January 16th. Company could submit today. They're part of the January submission. Company could submit on the 30th. They're part of the January submission on the 31st. The second we hit February 1st, we kind of say, all right, here's the bucket of January submissions. Let's go do that evaluation. And then February 1st kind of starts that next acceptance criteria or acceptance period. And then it's about 2 weeks. So the team takes about 2 weeks to do the reviews. So somewhere, actually, this Friday, I owe my final decision on who's in the marketplace for the December. So January 17th is a good example, right? In terms of like how many days into the next month we finished the assessment from the prior month. So hit that. And again, don't get your video in, no big deal. There's sort of a multi-step. Someone watches your video and basically deems it compliant. And then if it's compliant, it goes to assessment. So if you submit, and this has happened, an hour and a half long video about your solution, it's going to get deemed not compliant because you weren't within the 5 minutes in the instructions. It won't even get assessed. You'll get kicked back, usually within 24 hours, letting you know. The problem of that is that, like all DoD acquisition, everyone submits the last day. And so the compliance check becomes really hard to give you feedback on compliance on the last day of submission, because if you submit on the 31st, you're going to find out on the 1st that you weren't compliant. And now you're waiting a month before you can get assessed. The other big bullet here is it is solution specific. Your solution is what's going through the competitive process, not your company, right? So it would not be fair. Let's say Liz Chirico wins the lottery tomorrow and she decides she wants to start an AI company, and lizai.com. Lizai.com has a large language model that she, sells to, fitness people. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. So if that's what's reviewed and in the marketplace, Liz's AI fitness solution, but Liz launches a new model that's not in the marketplace, it's not proper to then say, oh, I want to buy that new thing. And look, Liz is in the marketplace, so I can do it without further competition, right? Because that new thing wasn't what was competed. So solution specific. That said, Liz can very quickly, or whenever she wants, send the next solution in the marketplace, right? So there are companies in the marketplace that have 6 solutions because they feel like they have 6 different solutions. They want it to all be in the marketplace. So it's solution specific, and no limit on how many you can submit. All right, next slide, please. All right, so quick nuance. It did get a little convoluted in the November timeframe. So TSM is Trade and Solution Marketplace. It's kind of that first column. I know this is kind of an eye chart. The next column was something we launched in November called the Cyber Aisle. The logic was all right, Tradewin Solution Marketplace is a post-competition environment, and that because it went through CDAO's competition. But what about other competitions like the SIBR program? And so we opened up this opportunity for anyone who's previously been awarded a SIBR, phase one, phase two, to just make their 5-minute pitch video. It has to be compliant with like our can't be over 5 minutes, that kind of thing, but it's not going to get recompeted or assessed by us. Because that's the beauty of a SIBR is you get the opportunity to non-compete for future work of that solution. And so we're just offering the companies who have positively, been awarded a SIBR the ability to make a video just to be in Solution Marketplace for further visibility and marketing. So that's something that we opened just as an opportunity to help grow this idea of being post competition. But the same month we opened up a SIBR call. And it was like, well, what's the aisle? What's the SIBR, right? So we made this little graphic to help explain that SIBR has kind of come and gone in terms of it's opened, assessed, and closed. We haven't made any awards or anything yet, but there'll be more SIBR opportunities. But the one that's on this graphic is closed at this point. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, I think this is pretty much my last slide. So I'll just hit some of the things I mentioned. I would talk about the playground, but like I said, these are really tools for the DoD acquisition professionals, but it'll just help maybe orient you all in terms of like some of the things that we're thinking about and playing with. I love it. I got to speak at the Ace Alamo conference in Texas. Was that in November? And I asked the audience, like, how many of you from industry have used AI to write your proposal? And maybe like 80%, it was actually more than I expected, like 80% of the audience member put their hands up. And I said, how many of you would feel comfortable if I used AI to evaluate your proposal? And like everyone's hands went down, right? So we have this like super interesting dichotomy where everyone's very, very okay using it to generate the proposal, but no one wants AI to evaluate their proposal. So we don't have a AI proposal evaluation tool in here. I'm not sure we're there yet. There's been some experiments happening with AFWorks and others, but I'll hit some of these. So I mentioned kind of GroupHog. They're all different. ProcureSite is an example of a commercial, no CDO affiliation. Like ProcureSite's by Appian, they effectively just launched this thing where if you're a .gov or .mil, they give you free access. So great. It's just a semantic search for SAM. So effectively, I can go and just say, my hands are cold. And it's going to show me all the solicitations for gloves and mittens and hand warmers and those kind of things. So it just makes searching SAM super easy. The AI Acquisition Assistant was an experiment that CDAO ran. This was really talking about kind of RAG and hallucinations and all of that. It was how well can we query, different data sets in a chatbot type format. It's amazing how quickly the AI landscape has changed, because in like January, this felt exciting, and we're here a year later, and it's like, yeah, everyone's doing that, right? And it's amazing how much has changed in a year. The one thing that I'm actually pretty stoked about, as I mentioned, that we're doing the Defense Mavericks podcast. We just pushed that to prod. So if you are in this tool, and actually this is something that you all can play with too, it's available publicly. And you type something like, what's a bailment agreement? It would give you like the FAR definition of a bailment agreement. And then it would also below that say like, oh, on this Defense Mavericks episode, it was discussed between like Ryan and Mike, and you can click the link and it'll bring you like exactly the spot in Spotify when it was talked about. So that's pretty neat. Again, experiment, super left of prototype, but just seeing kind of art of possible with different solutions. Turbo Innovate is a tool that does market research and uses a large language model to generate the market research report. Like everything here, I keep emphasizing the human in the loop, but we have this ability that we've experimented with. But everyone in DoD, everyone has a .mil, has access to use this tool. We bought in terms of another level of experimentation, but for the contract experiment, we bought compute. So everyone with .mil gets access, and we're paying for usage, which I think is an interesting model, because from a company standpoint, if you think your tool is so great, like I'll pay you if people use it. That's sort of the model that we're using there. But you can type in something as easy as Liz, you mentioned, like the LILT effort with language translation. You can type in, I need AI to help me with language translation for Intel related missions. and it'll in 30 seconds write a 8-page market research report with all the SIBR awards that have historically happened and other funding awards and subject matter experts and universities and all that stuff. It's pretty neat. The EULA shredder, super niche, right? But for those like in the software world that have licenses that have a EULA end user license agreement, you can paste it into this tool. It'll effectively highlight areas that the federal government can't accept, right? So, again, human in the loop, don't rely on it exclusively, but neat little double check before you might ask your policy or legal folks. It's how we treat it. The next two, Nipper, I'll do the one below it and it. Nipper GPT and Camo GPT are two homegrown LLM solutions. So Nipper GPT is AFRL, Camo GPT is Army. I think Nipper GPT is a little bit more mature on the TRL scale, but Camo GPT has IL6 secret. So they kind of have both pros and cons. Pretty neat. I mean, we start talking about messing around with like people dropping in proposals and asking questions and like those kind of things. Very neat in terms of getting some responses and frankly, just learning how to be a prompt engineer and like how to use these types of tools. It's educational for the workforce. Actbot, I hit a little bit already. The main thing that we're doing with this, we have about 12 prompts that we can put in and then generate a pretty robust requirements package. So that's something that we've worked to build out here just as recent as the last month. And yeah, I think I'll end there. Those are the big ones. There's a QR code there that'll bring you right to the page if you want to mess around. I think probably the AI acquisition assistant is the only one that y'all can play with as an industry partner, but worth at least knowing what we're doing on the DoD side. All right, I think that's my last slide. I did see some Q&A. There's some more QR codes. Want to start hitting these Q&A? All right, how can a small business with current solution sign up for a pilot program? I think none of the pilots that we talked about with like the ARC have really been announced yet other than the SIBR program. So SIBR, you could have applied if you didn't. There'll be another announcement. But other than that, just keep monitoring those 3 websites that I pasted in the chat. Liz, I don't have any issues sharing the slide deck. Do you?
No, I think it should be available. I defer to our hosts for how they want to approach that.
Yes, it will be shared with all the attendees.
Yep.
Great.
In regards to SIBR, just jumped on me. How can industry better engage? At times, what is written on paper is not necessarily the solution sought without having an understanding from tech leads. Yeah, I agree. This was my first experience going through as an assessor of a SIBR program. I've just never had that experience before. And it felt to me like I wish that I knew better requirement owners than me because I'm an acquisition guy. I mean, there were other people obviously during the review process, but there were solutions that kind of, I'll say, like lacked a specific use case. I use that anecdote of like generic RAG, and you're like, okay, like a lot of companies can do that. Like, how are you different? What are you focusing on? So I think my only real answer is like, making sure you're tracking some of the initiatives that are on AI.mil. We have the industry days that happen, right? Really just like tracking what our leadership's talking about in terms of initiatives, what they want to focus on, right? Because then it's like, it's connected dots. You watch a video or read a paper and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is going to beat my boss's LOE or whatever that is. So that's my thought on that. Liz, I know you came off mute, so you probably got something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, where we have the opportunity, we try to do RFIs before we release an RFP, if possible. I know some of the structures of, non-traditional, non-FAR-based contracting work a little bit differently, but we try to do something like an RFI process to really incorporate feedback as we kind of move through the steps. So I would just invite you to continue sharing that critical feedback for us so we can better, post our requirements in a way that makes sense and address those questions up front.
Yeah, awesome. Any words of wisdoms on credit card purchase for your office? I don't know if this had to do with the thing that I brought up as a idea, or if they're generally asking
Is this like GPC purchases, maybe?
Yeah, I assume so. I know that I fought to get someone on our team with a purchase card, and we've yet to use it. So I gotta. I don't. Yeah, we haven't been able to use that feature yet. I'm not sure if that. And if you have another question, I can better understand. I just didn't get it from that. Looks like the next two are just copy paste of our vendor engagement email address. So I don't think that's a question. I think they're just sharing. Carl says, "Are there any plans to make Actbot? Where'd it go? Available?" I think it said in PD2. I don't think so. I think we've kind of stopped at that point. Like we get to the point of like having to just input something in PD2 and that'll be it. We're so like Liz mentioned, like trying to become more of a DoD centric contract writing system, whatever it is. It's like we have our small little Actbot requirement. It's hard to kind of plug into the big thing. Of course, that would be ideal, but we definitely haven't prioritized that as an update. We've really been searching for more of the EULA shredder, like the small niche things that may be of interest to a weird population of people. Even just our folks, my old office at DCMA, it was like, oh my gosh, all of the disclosure statement updates we get. If something could just tell me if they're a cost accounting change or not. Is it just material? Is it immaterial or not? Basically, right? So like little things that I would have never even thought about, small little use cases for AI can become interesting like that. All right, what would you say is the most active? Who would you say is the most active in Tradewinds and interacts with vendors? That's an interesting question. I think there was this vision of like the government requirement owner browsing, Tradewinds like it's Instagram, in the evening, and I don't think that ever really came to fruition. I think realistically, what happens is the companies are using it as an additional data point when they're selling. Of like, hey, just so you know, like we've already competed to this specific solution. That means you can buy it tomorrow without really having to do any other competition, having to document why you chose us from a sole source standpoint, because it becomes not a sole source award. So the examples that we have are mostly the companies educating the buying activity on what Tradewinds is and how to use it. And we're doing our best to do the same in education, the government. But of course, the companies pick up on it right away. They're excited about it. They want to educate. And so, frankly, industry has been one of our best megaphones in how to use Tradewinds because they understand it, because they have a vested interest in understanding it. And what we've found is better than Ryan getting on a call and introducing the PCO to what the solution marketplace is we've leveraged that champions model. And it's like, oh, you're Air Force, you've never used Tradewinds Solution Marketplace. Like, meet this person who's Air Force and has used it. Like, you guys have the same policies. Like, she can probably help you, right? Like that's been an effective method for us. I'm happy to put, Liz, the question was just if we're willing to share our contact information.
I was going to say, I think the Tradewinds email is probably the best way for vendor engagement, just to make sure we're fair and equitable, and answer your question the best way possible. That way we can get it to the right SME based on the content.
Yep, dropped it in there. Best use case for AI is achieved data. Oh, yeah. Auditing AR AP in real time makes both vendors and procurement teams happy. What sort of audit use cases have you seen, Ryan and Elizabeth? Yeah, go ahead if you have one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I think there are several ongoing FM and audit use cases going on right now. Actually, I think the ARC is kind of working on some of those. We are working across our functional partners, like with OUSD Comptroller and the FM communities to better understand kind of what their pain points are. And then, yeah, ARC I know is working on a few use cases that have been shared with them, but I think they are ongoing. So I'd say more to follow because I don't think we have results from some of those pilots yet, but I know there are pilots that are going on in the FM and audit space.
Yeah, and I'm tracking one that's upcoming, so always the plug for checking sam.gov that is effectively this. It's how can we use AI to help solve an audit issue. So um, yeah, just keep an eye out for the opportunities. I'm not sure if that one's going to be cross-posted to Tradewinds. I know it's going to be posted to SAM as the government-wide point of entry. I think. Oh, archived. Yeah, he just typed correct his typo. Okay, got it. I think that's the questions.
I do think that that is all the questions. I want to thank you, Liz and Ryan. Lots of really great information. Really want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to join us and provide all this awesome information. We saw some great feedback already in the comments. But and if there's questions that weren't answered, we encourage the participants to reach out to thanks for sharing the email address there for additional follow-up. Just to remind everyone, the slides and a video recording from today's session are going to be provided to you within the next couple of days. So you will have all of that, and we're going to post the recordings on our website as well. Thanks again, Liz and Ryan. Really appreciate you making this webinar possible. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Appreciate all the great questions. Before we wrap up, you're going to see a brief anonymous survey appear on your screen. It would mean a lot to us and for our SBA partners if you could take a moment to fill it out. Your feedback is really very valuable to us as we try to enhance our programs to serve you better. So this is the final of our 4-part series. We thought it was great to have the DoD with us. I mean, this awesome information was shared. So thanks again to everyone for joining us for this series. Really appreciate all the great engagement, and look forward to seeing you again, hopefully at a VIP class, many of you. But we look forward to sharing more additional information in the future. Take care, everyone. Thanks again, Ryan and Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Have a good day.
Good day, everyone.